is the 17th President and Chief Executive Officer of the NAACP and the youngest person to hold the position in the organization's nearly 100-year history. He is well positioned to answer the call. During his career, he has served as President of the Rosenberg Foundation, Director of the U.S. Human Rights Program and Amnesty International, and Executive Director of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, NAACP, a foundation of more than 200 Black community newspapers. From his early years of organizing voter registration drives up until his nomination and election of NAACP President, he has been motivated by civic duty and a constant need to improve the lives of American unrepresented. His path through journalism and the Black press is not unlike several other former NAACP presidents, including Roy Wilkins, Walter White, Ida B. Wells, and W.E.B. Du Bois. In 1997, he returned to Columbia State University and completed his degree in political science. With the encouragement of mentors, he applied and was accepted to Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar, where he earned a master's degree in comparative social research. He eventually went on and served as Executive Director of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, NNPA. While at the NNPA, he built its 90-year-old National News Service and launched a web-based initiative that more than doubled the number of Black newspaper publishings online. Most recently, he was president of the Rosenberg Foundation, a private independent institution that funds civic and human rights advocacy to benefit California's working families. Prior to that, he was director of the U.S. Human Rights Program at Amnesty International. Mr. Jelks.
Well, good afternoon. God is good. All the time. Thank you, Bishop Rod, for your grace. Thank you for your strength. You inspire all of us. You inspire this country to slow down a minute. Think about what's real in this time. I have a whole speech prepared here, but I just want to talk from my heart, if that's okay. I was here, it's humbling to be in this room. And I guarantee you, I may be the first NAACP CEO to show up. This isn't the last time you see me. Talking to our Washington Bureau Director, Mr. Kelly Shelton, who started training me when I was 20 years old and he had black hair. That next summer we should bring my families. I can't speak for his family, but I will be back here next summer with my family. I was humbled when I walked in here because I was on my way to meet with Mr. Page, who I've been looking forward to meeting for many years. The first person I saw was Wendell Paris, who's known me since I was 20 years old in Jackson, Mississippi. Right after I left D.C., I moved down there, and then I saw John Zipper, who's known me since not long thereafter. I started working with Jackson Avenue. And then I bumped into Heather Gray, who I've only known on the phone. We met once or twice, but we've really, through all sorts of things, death penalty battles and everything. And And I want you to talk to you about a few things. I want you to know a little bit about who's running the NAACP, because I suppose all of you asked that at some point. Who is running the NAACP? I want to talk to you about our commitment, the commitment I'm going to lead us into deepening the black farmers, black landowners, black rural business people. Now I want to talk to you about these obstructionists in the Senate and what all of us need to be doing right now if we want to see all the change that we voted for realized in this country. That short bio had, all my accolades and achievements. What you really need to know about me is this. I'm a fifth-generation NAACP member. The first generation to join were farmers in Petersburg, Virginia, just outside in Dinwiddie County. They lost their farm, and my mom, therefore, was born in Petersburg, but then shipped up and lived in the projects in West Baltimore, where my grandma watched over Juanita Mitchell's kids that founded the NAACP in the college division, while Juanita ran the branch meetings. And my mom, after she got done having the hardest year of her life, desegregating her high school, went back to Petersburg to participate in the same church sit-in that Charles Sherrod was involved in that summer. My family, like many of your families, this has been a constant struggle since we were brought over here. And we've been raised in our family to fight whenever we need to fight. I was baptized into the struggle of black farmers by a man named Dwayne Boyd. Dwayne was a farmer in Starksville, Mississippi, Oktibbeha County. My publisher, Charles Tisdale, out of Jackson Avenue. The man who taught me how to write, who had been taught to write himself while a reporter at the Chicago Defender and the Tri-State Defender by Ralph Ellison, and who had really learned his ABCs at Trinity High School in northern Alabama. At our newspaper, that newsroom where I worked, from a few years after the last time it was firebombed until a few years before the next time it was firebombed, we dedicated ourselves to the most important stories in the state. And there was a man named Dwayne Boyd up in Starksville who had 2 trials that resulted in hung juries. And Mr. Tisdale gave me the story, and he said, Ben, this is yours now. I'm passing the baton to you because the reporter who's covering the last isn't here no more. He said, don't worry, you don't have to go up to Starksville if you don't want to. None of the other reporters have. Just cover the story. He said, well, it seems to me we need to do something differently this time than we did the last 2 times. So I'm going to head up to Starksville. And he kind of smiled and he said, well, looking the way you do, I don't suppose they'll see you coming, so go on. So we had been claiming that there were 3 men who were attempting to frame Dwayne Boyd for arson. See, Dwayne had been trained at UC Davis's ag school. He had worked for Willie Brown, the black Speaker of the House. And when he heard that they were trying to steal his family's farm, the largest black-owned parcel in Oktibbeha County, 300 acres, he came running back to fight beside his great aunt, who was the last family member who was living on the land, and the woman whose house I would stay in whenever I was up there investigating the story. And one day, this white farmer named W. Waldrop, that was the first man we said was involved in the conspiracy. The second was Dolph Bryant, the sheriff, who apparently had given Johnny Cash a hard time. That's how long he'd been sheriff. Starksville City Jail. You may know that's the two. And the third was a guy named Ben Hilbert, who was Dudley Waldrop's lawyer. Well, one day, Dudley Waldrop's tractor tire came up burning in the middle of the field. Now, either the person was trying to destroy the tractor and they were just foolish because that tire was balancing with water. Basically lighting a water balloon on fire. Or they were trying to just send somebody a message, possibly. Or they were trying to frame somebody for arson and get right back to farming the next day to switch the tire and keep on going. And so, Dudley Waldrop wouldn't talk to me, but Ben Hilton would. And the sheriff would. So I went into the sheriff's office. I went into Ben Hilton's office. Nice office, upstairs, pretty office. He had a map on the wall of Tibiha County. Not much smaller than that picture over there. Just like that sun in the middle of the picture, his parcel, if that had been a map of the world, well, it was Europe and Africa. It was 12,000 acres in the middle of the county. That's not all that big. And as I walked in, he yelled at me. He said, "Your paper's a damn lie." I said, "Pardon me?" And he pointed to this little 40-acre parcel at the bottom of it, and he says, "I don't own any land that I got from no one, except for those 40 acres right there. And I don't know why that man's house burned down in 1964. But I'll tell you one thing, when he got to Chicago, I paid him a fair price for it." Now that sounds like a fair negotiation. He's homeless in Chicago. You got 12,000 acres in Starksville, and this is a fair negotiation. Okay, all right. So we sit down, I said, "Well, what do you think about Dwayne Boyd?" He says, "Well, I don't like his kind of my kind. In fact, I don't like him so much. I almost shot my own security guard when he showed up here to get his paycheck in plain clothes." Tells you how many black people walk into that office. He said, "Whip my sawed off, that's right here." I said, "Okay, that's me." He said, "Well, I'll tell you one thing. I told my client what he was doing was illegal." See, Ben Hilda was the king of partition sales in our county. And he said, "I told him, you only own 1/42nd. He had bought it from Dwayne's cousin. "But you're farming half of it. And you got to do a partition sale before you can try to farm half the land when you own 1/42nd. So he gave the motive. Right? That's the motive. The man's been farming the land illegally. His own lawyer says it. He also said we were liars because he didn't know the sheriff. He's the largest landowner in the county and he don't know the sheriff. He's wearing a Masonic ring. You would find out later the same Masonic ring the sheriff was wearing, but he don't know the sheriff. His office is on the same block as the sheriff, but he don't know the sheriff. Okay. I got what I needed from him and I walked around the corner to the sheriff's office. Sheriff says to me, he says, "Sheriff, what do you think of Dwayne Boyd?" I said, "I don't think much of him. I don't like that type of man in my county. He's a troublemaker." I said, "Dwayne Boyd says that when he got a discrimination judgment against the USDA, you called his student loan creditors. Is that true?" "That's true." "Have you done that for anybody else?" "No, I haven't." I said, "Well, Dwayne Boyd says that you arranged for out-of-state bounty hunters not once but twice to pick him up on an unpaid speeding ticket from Tennessee. Is that true?" "That's true." "Have you done that for anybody else?" "No, I haven't." I said, "The last time they picked him up in Jackson, because he was so scared to be back here, and they threw him in the trunk of a car, and they shipped him all the way up to Memphis in the trunk of the car. Did you know that?" "Yeah, I knew that. That's unfortunate." I said, "Did you know that when he got there, the judge said that he had paid the speeding ticket?" He said, "Yeah, that's unfortunate too." He said, "Well, tell me what happened." I said, "Well, first of all, you should know I'm the only licensed fire investigator in this or the surrounding 3 counties. All right, so we have motive, we have bias, and now we have an uncontrovertible expert." He says, "When I heard that however, when I heard that Dudley Waldrop's tire had come up burned on his tractor, I knew Dwayne Boyd had done it. Now he made up his mind before he investigated." Keep on going. So he says, "Well, what else do you want to know?" I said, "Well, I think I got everything else." I said, "Did you investigate?" He said, "Yeah, I went out there and looked around, but I knew Dwayne Boyd had done it." So as I was driving back to Jackson, down that long road where you got past Philadelphia, keep on going past the bogs for hours, and you get down to Jackson, it occurs to me, I have all of this on tape. Now, these men operated with such entitlement that if you just went up and sat in their office and asked them to tell the truth, they would just tell it. And so I was really nervous, because I was afraid at some point they would realize, because I had asked them, "You realize this is on tape? Do I have permission?" "Oh, I think you have to do a reporter." That I had it too, so I went right to his defense lawyer, Shokwe Lumumba. And I gave Shokwe the tapes, I sat in his office, and I got what I needed for my story. We ran the story. Well, I went back to college for a semester, and 6 months later, I got a call, "Ben, you need to get down here. Joy's trial's about to start." So I get down there, rent a car I picked up my old car, 78 Ford Futura with retread tires. And I just started speeding up as fast as I could in a rainstorm behind logging trucks all the way up from Jackson to Starksville. And I'm trying to pass trucks with retread tires and low visibility in a rainstorm, trying to get there in time. And I'm late. And I'm walking up the stairs to the courthouse, and Dwayne Board is working walking down. Show walking down. And I said, "I'm sorry that I'm late." He said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "The trial's over, the jury's been impaneled, and we're going to get lunch." I said, "But don't you need my testimony?" He said, "No, the sheriff and the lawyer said everything to us they said to you." I said, "Really?" I said, well, not at first. They claimed they couldn't recall the conversation, but I just held up the tape. And they remembered the perjury laws. And they said everything. I said, "Okay." So we went and we got lunch, and we ordered lunch, and before it got there, the bailiff was standing there, and he said, "The jury's made their decision. You need to come back down." You know, historically, in northeastern Mississippi, the juries you get there, when a jury takes less than 45 minutes to deliberate, and a black man's on the stand in his third trial on the same charges, it's not a good sign. And the longest walk I ever took was from that restaurant door across the street and up the stairs to the courthouse. And the jury acquitted him on every single charge. It was doubly sweet because his great aunt, last time I stayed with her, was a lady who had always worked for her own family and for her own people, on land that her father had bought when he got out of slavery, and who had one chicken, and who made all her own jelly. And when I stayed there, because I'm a vegetarian, she would give me the one egg. And she would make me a whole mess of biscuits. And I'd eat a half a jar of jelly, and then I'd be on my way. All just high on the sugar of the jelly, out there to investigate her nephew's case. She said, you know what makes me feel the sickest about this whole thing? I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, they did the same thing to Dwayne that they're trying to do to Dwayne, they did to his granddad. His granddaddy had a prize cow. He bought it from a white farmer who thought it was the run of the litter. After the winter, after it won the county fair, got its blue ribbon, he put it back into the common pasture to mated. And when they pulled it out, it had the white farmer's brand over his grandfather's brand. And they threw his grandfather in jail. And so it was doubly sweet, because finally we had gotten justice for one of the Boyd family farmers from a northeast Mississippi jury. Well, that's what can happen when people of any color open their ears up and allow themselves to hear the truth. Put themselves in the other man's shoes. And that's all we're asking the Senate to do right now. That's all we're asking the Senate to do right now. And the fact that this group of obstructionists in the Senate can be so base, so that even when we're able to save 160,000 teachers' jobs like we did last week, they balance it out on food stamps. And on an issue as simple as this one, where there has been, in the Pickford 2 cases, where there has been a settlement and the House has voted affirmatively, they failed to pass it 6 times. And they want to say that it's about balancing the budget, when the Bush givebacks to the richest. That's how you balance the budget. You don't balance the budget with injustice. You balance it with fairness. Now, I'm deeply sorry, and I've apologized to Shirley twice. Once on the phone the same day we made the mistake. Now it's 2 hours to make the mistake. And we got everything out there, pushed the White House openly to reverse course, the USD openly to reverse course. And every time she's been extremely gracious and accepted quickly and told me to stay focused. We have to stay focused right now. We have to understand that the attack on us, where Andrew Breitbart says he was willing just to run right over her, came for a reason. It came not because we called the Tea Party racist. We don't believe the Tea Party is racist. Fox News is here, I want them to hear that, so they stop repeating that lie. They got angry because we asked them to expel the racists. Just get them out of your midst. It's all right if you want to build a movement about tax policy and funny hats. But you're going to do it like the rest of us build movements, the hard way. You're not going to be able to indulge in the gasoline of hatred and racism. And not being able to take the shortcut this time got them real upset. And they're going to stay upset because we're going to keep on going after them. Shirley has great lawyers. I'll tell you, my organizers will be standing right beside her and a lot of other folks if she decides to sue. Big stakes, y'all. Big stakes. We have made a lot of progress. And we have to be honest about that. We have to own that. There are tens of millions of people who are getting access to health care coverage for the first time across this country. There are children with pre-existing conditions that right now can no longer be discriminated against because of us, because of people in this room who fight this across the country. Women can no longer be mistreated on the job and fear that they won't get justice because we got the Lily Ledbetter bill passed. This fall, when children like my daughter return to the public schools, there'll be 160,000 more teachers than there would have been because we got that bill through. And while they think they're going to balance it on food stamps, folks who side with us push them to make sure that those don't go into effect on 2014, and we will make sure that food stamps is fully restored before 2014. We have got to revive our own spirits. We have got to be ruthless within our expectations of ourselves, to stay focused, to stay on the job, to get out of the bleachers, to get back onto the battlefield, to organize our names, and to say to any of our friends who say, well, golly gee, Canada so-and-so, the president, they ain't talking like they were in 2008. The only question to them should be, are you working as hard as you were in 2008? Or did you think that if you just put somebody in the office, everything else takes care of itself? My family, your family, we've been fighting for decades. And everything that my 93-year-old grandma is still around as sharp as a tack tells me is that it ebbs and it flows, but you always keep pushing forward. We have made a lot of change in this country, and we can make much more, but the way that we do it is we come back together with all of our friends. And we humble ourselves and say, you know what, we got some things to do. We got to get justice for black farmers. We got to pass the Interracial Profiling Act, and you know what, we can't do it by ourselves, so we need your help. And we let them say to us, well, you know what, we got some things. We got to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And we need your help. And we remember what Frederick Douglass told us 141 years ago. With regard to this question of immigration, it should be settled on grounds higher than mere selfish expediency. There is such a thing as human rights. They are indestructible and they are universal. And so this fall on October 2nd, 10-2-10, the NAACP has pulled together a mighty coalition of organizations of which we need the Federation to be a part. To go back to Washington and demand all of the change that we voted for.
Right.
To say to our friends who helped us make so much progress, thank you. and to say to those folks who have stood up there in the Senate and blocked 350 bills, many of them for job creation, 6 times justice for black farmers, don't count us out just yet. We have, as we stand here, I was saying 1,800 buses committed from New York City alone. We now have 1,900 buses committed from New York City alone.
All right.
This is going to be a march that will be multiracial. It will be multi-state. It'll be focused on a few core issues related to jobs, to justice, to education for all of our kids. And it will send us back a month before the election, inspired hundreds of thousands of organizers back into communities across this country, inspired to keep pushing. Because you know what? The majority from 2008, people who all came together and agreed on what was really important in this country. 2008 has gone nowhere but back to the couch. We've seen record low voter turnout in places like Shelby County across the South. These folks are depressed because they're holding a lot of anger and frustration in them. And I say, let's let them get it out. Let's let them make clear what's important so that the folks who are running for office can say honestly, look, you know, last time I thought healthcare was job one. It's clearly jobs. This time I'll take care of it. Last time I thought the Senate really would do the right thing by y'all. Obviously it won't. We're going to get an up or down vote before this rally, and get this taken care of. And we're going to keep on pushing because, you know, justice for the injustice that was done decades ago is simply the first step. After I apologized to Shirley in Albany, we spent hours driving around looking at the cooperatives. She went to run nurtured down there for years. I met with the president of the Coffee County branch. Apologized to him too. And he looked at me and he said the same thing my grandmother had said to me a couple of days earlier. He said, son, I want you to go home and read the story of Joseph.
All right.
He said, what they have intended for evil, we will use for good. So I hope to see you in Washington on October 2nd. I will see Mr. Page as soon as the Senate reconvenes so we can push through this up or down vote. And I will see all of you on the battlefield as we use what Andrew Breitbart intended for evil for good.